Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday afternoon. We appreciate everyone's time and patience. Thank you for another Launch GSU virtual event. As everyone is aware, we are hosting virtual events throughout the entire month of April. Today, momentarily, we will be presenting to you entrepreneur resources at the library. And on Wednesday, we are super excited about entrepreneurship for entertainers. We have three, three gentlemen that are in the music industry that have spent most of their professional career in the music industry and are going to talk with our entertainers on campus about ways that they should treat their talent and art like a business. So we're super excited. And then we will wind down the rest of April with the events that you see here: cybersecurity, talking about disrupting your comfort zone. Times like this are a perfect opportunity for us to stretch ourselves and get into things that we typically would not get into. On the 23rd, we have another Panthropreneur discussion. We have two more entrepreneurs that will talk about best practices and things that you should be doing and can be doing for your business right now. Finally, understanding personal credit, tips and tools for how you can build and strengthen your personal credit and the role that personal credit plays with your business. And last but absolutely not least, on April 30th, we will have our first ever virtual spring entrepreneur showcase. So we're super excited to have several of our launch members showcase and tell the university about their businesses. So without further ado, this has been one of our regular workshops. I feel is one of the most beneficial workshops that we host. Oftentimes, our entrepreneurs say, well, should I pay someone to do marketing research? How can I do competitive analysis? How do I even know where to start? Is there a market for my business? Where are the resources? And students talk to me about for paying to do research, and I tell them, hello, we have this incredible and amazing library right here on campus. Students just barely scratch the surface when it comes to the resources that are available at the GSU Library. And even though the physical building is closed, 90% of the resources are still available online. So we're going to spend the next hour plus talking to two of the amazing resources that are at the two human resources that we have at our GSU library who can help you unlock the key. They have the key to unlock all the rest of the resources. Um, so it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to two of my favorite people on the GSU campus. We have Dan Lee, who is our business librarian, who's been conducting this presentation for the past couple of semesters. And then a dear friend of mine who goes back a little bit longer than Dan, Joe Glogwski. And Joe also, he was the business librarian prior to Dan joining, but Joe also is a data services expert and is knowledgeable in a lot of the research tools that are available and the data tools. So these are two of the amazing resources we have at the library. I could go on and on about both of them, but you're not here to hear me brag about them. We want them to talk about the resources that are available at the library. So with that, I believe first up is going to be Dan. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you. Thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate your time. And we are going to stop sharing. And I'm going to give this over to you, Dan, and then you can go ahead and get started. Feel free to go ahead and
Okay, great.
share.
Can,
And
can
welcome,
you all
Dan.
hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you all, okay, great. Thank you, Erica, for having us today. Again, my name is Dan Lay, and I am your business librarian here. And what I'm going to do is to share a PowerPoint with you. Just hang on with me for 1 second. Okay. And then here is the PowerPoint that I will use to accommodate my presentation for you today. And it's only going to be about 15 to 20 minutes, but I can guarantee now this is one of the most valuable 15, 20 minutes on my part that's going to help you so much with your startup. So as Erica said, we had so much resources here at the library. And I think for most of you, there is a fear that it's just so much information out there that it's hard for you to find what you need. And it's just so complicated. But actually, it is not. It's very easy to use. And what we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to access the library from off campus. That has been problematic for some of you in the past, but now it's getting better with internet connection, and everybody's online now. So it is much easier to get to the resources at the library online. And then we just go over the library research. How does it work? You know, it's nebulous. It's just so much out there. But we're just going to make this very simple for you. We're just going to talk about 3 business databases going to be super useful for you in your business startup. They are IBIS World, MediaMark or University Reporter, and then Simply Analytics. Recently, I worked with Erica about the demographics of the students at Start GSU. And surprisingly, we found out that more than half of you are not a non-business major. So a lot of the business databases that we have at GSU may be like a foreign language to you because the kind of terminology, the wording that they use is not going to be very self-explanatory to you. So that's why we have selectively picked these 3 databases for you to easily visualize how to look at data to support your business startup. So to get to the library website, as many of you know, it's very easy. You could just go in and type in the HTTPS, the URL on the left-hand side, or you can just go to any browser and just type in GSU Library and you will get there. Just pick the first thing that comes up on the list. The second thing you can do, and I recommend this one because it's so much easier to use, is just go to iCollege, and on the very top of the iCollege toolbar, there should be a direct link to the library website. And you can also go to the Robinson gsu.edu, and then links you up to the GSU Library. And right here is a little diagram. Yeah.
I don't know if you're trying to show us something, but right now we're just still seeing you. We're not seeing your screen yet.
Oh, really? Okay.
No. We're looking at your wonderful face.
Okay. And I thought I hit share. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, let me go back to where we were.
There we go. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes,
And
we
I'm
see
very
it now.
sorry about that.
Now we see the library homepage. And you got a shout out on our group me. Someone said, yes, Dan the man. We see the technology screen. PowerPoint was up a moment ago. I'll take this opportunity for my ladies and gentlemen that are participating today. While Dan's pulling that up, if you guys have any questions, don't be shy. Please put your questions in the chat box for us, and I'll make sure we bring them up and get Dan or Joel to answer them during the presentation.
Okay, Dan just sent me a note. He's having trouble with his computer, so I'm going to go ahead with my part.
Okay.
While he tries to resolve that issue.
Okay.
So just give me a minute to set up my screen here.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, it looks like I'm the host. That's good.
Yep.
The first thing I want to do is, I'm not going to do a PowerPoint presentation. I just wanted to do some demos on some of the databases. And I do have a PDF that I want to share with you all, though. You can consider this to be like a handout. If we were in person, I'd probably give something like this. So I'm going to send you this thing. And you can look at it now, or you can use it as a reference for later, however you want to look at it. It's fine. It's called Spring 2020 Launch GSU. It's a PDF file. And I just sent it through WebEx. Did you all see it? Okay, hopefully you got it. It looks like it says 7. On my screen, it says 7 people got it. So I'm going to assume you all got it. If not, I'll send a copy of it to Erica, and she can forward it to anybody. Are you collecting email addresses for this, Erica? Okay, it looks like Erica's muted. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So in that PDF I just shared with you, it has a list of 3 different databases, and we're going to look at them all. The first one I wanted to look at is Simply Analytics. I'm going to share my screen here. And okay, so you should see the library website. Hopefully that's what people are seeing. So again, the first database I wanted to take a look at is a database called Simply Analytics. And you can find it in our A to Z list of databases. So if you're on the library homepage, if you scroll down a little bit, you can just click on this S down here. And here it is, Simply Analytics. It used to be called Simply Map. And it's a database that has mapping tools, that has analytics and data visualization components to it. And when you first get into Simply Analytics, you'll need to, of course, authenticate with your campus ID and password. And then you will get to a page that looks kind of like this. And it's going to ask you to create an account or sign in with your account or sign in as a guest. Now, it's not necessary that you create your own account, but I would strongly encourage you to do so. If you have an account with Simply Analytics, it's free. It's just a way to save your work. And you can also share your work with others. And so if you're working on a big project, you don't have to start over every time you log in. Okay, it looks like Dan's back in. Okay, so I'm going to start in here. And so I already have a project started. I'm going to delete that though. So when you first come in for real, this is the screen you'll see. It'll say start a new project. And so it prompts you to choose a new location and start from there. But I'm going to close out of that. I want to start from scratch here. So I want to talk a little bit about what's in Simply Analytics. So I mentioned you can do some mapping and analytics and data visualization with it. It collects data from a few different sources. It has It has some census data. It has some data from marketing companies. And if you're in, well, you can see what I'm looking at here. So when you first get into Simply Analytics, you can see the data option here on this panel on the left is selected, and it's showing us all the different data categories. So if you just want to browse through here, this stuff on this popular data category, this stuff on population, age, gender, race, ethnicity, and some demographics. What I wanted to take a look at today, though, was the consumer behavior data set. So we're just looking at the data by categories. Another way to view the data is by looking at the folder. So the folder just shows you another way to look at the data. So if you're not really sure what the data sources are that you're looking for, we're going to take a look at this Simmons local data. And this is actually pretty new. Dan may have known about this, but it looks like they have data on COVID-19 outbreak now here too. I just saw that. But if you're just starting out and you're just getting used to Simply Analytics, this default data category is probably the way to go. You can see here there's also a location option. So because this database has a mapping component, you really need to type in a location for whatever kind of data you're looking at. So you can look at, depending on what's available, you can look at national data, you can look at state level data. A lot of times you can look at city, county, and zip code level data too. But just keep in mind that not every data set is available in every single location category. But again, for this example, I want to look at consumer behavior. So we want to take a look at how people spend money on certain products. So for this example, let's say that we're interested in selling products and services to people with pets. So let's see what we can find out about people with pets in Georgia. So I'm going to go to this consumer behavior category here, and now I can see within the consumer behavior category, it looks like they want me to fill out this little survey. I'm going to dismiss that. Okay. I went to consumer behavior again. So okay, so here we are. We have the consumer behavior option selected. If we scroll down a little bit, you can drill down a little further. These are all the consumer behavior categories. And let's say, again, we're interested in pets. So I'm going to select that. And if we scroll down even further, you can further subdivide the pet categories. So let's say I'm interested in pet ownership. So I'm going to put a check on that box. And now you can see on this menu on the right, on the top, in sort of like the lighter gray font, it says consumer expenditure, entertainment, pets, toys, hobbies. So this is like the name of the data set and the specific question in that data set that relates to whatever it is we're looking for, in this case, information about pets. So if we're interested in consumer expenditure, we can see how much money people spend on pets, and we can see what the household average is for spending on pets. And that's this consumer expenditure data set. If we scroll down a little bit further, we have this Simmons local data set. And this is a little bit more granular. This talks a little bit about what kind of pets people have. If you scroll down even further, there's more Simmons local stuff. What kind of pets, how many birds you have, and so forth, how many cats you have. If you scroll down even further, you see stuff about hamsters, rabbits, reptiles. So there's a lot of questions here. And remember, when we selected our category, we're only looking at pet ownership here, right? So let's say I'm interested in finding out who owns dogs in Georgia. So if I scroll down a little bit, there's this category for dogs. And for each, these are actually questions on the survey. So how many pets in your household? So this question says dogs 4 or more. So the question would be like, how many households have 4 or more dogs in them? So let's say I'm interested in that. And you can see right below it, there's the same question, but it's a percentage. So depending on what you're trying to do, it might make more sense in some cases to look at the actual number, the count, versus the percentage. So I'm going to just use the count for now. So let's say I've selected that. I'm looking at the number of households who have 4 or more dogs. And I haven't selected my location yet. So if I go back over here to locations, I'm just going to put in Georgia. And when you start typing a state or any kind of geography, really, you'll see suggested options down below. And I start typing in Georgia, and it simply analytics says, well, how about Georgia? So I'm going to select that. And now we're looking at this map. So as you probably recognize, this yellow outline is for the state of Georgia. We're looking at the pets. How many households have 4 or more pets? And the darker the color, you can see here's the legend. So the darker the color is that means a higher number of people who have 4 or more dogs. And you can see on this top panel here, you can sort of see what we're looking at. So this is the question up on the top, the number of pets, households, dogs, 4 or more. We're looking in Georgia, we knew that. And we're looking at county level data. So what happens with Simply Analytics is the by option here, it's going to default depending on how far you're zoomed in. So it's going to automatically change the geographies based on how far you're zoomed in. So you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So if I zoom really far in, it says now I'm looking at this data by zip code. Now, and if I open up that menu, you can see it's automatically at the zip code. But I can specify, maybe I only want cities. So if I click cities, now regardless of how far I'm zoomed in or out, I'm only going to see city. Yeah. So I guess that's not working how I expected it to. So it's going back out to county. So I guess we do have to scroll back in if we want counties. But you can see, you can change the display geography there. So if we're catering, we're catering our business to people who own a lot of dogs, we want to maybe think about these counties that are shaded darker. So we can add some more data to this. So let's say we wanted to, or change it. So maybe we want to change it to, we'll go back to consumer behavior. We looked at pets and number of pets. Maybe we want to see how much money people spend on pet food, for example. Maybe we're selling dog food. We can look at the pet food. And now just like we saw in the category earlier, we see the different categories. So consumer expenditure, we can look at pet food, and we also see the Simmons local data set. So if we're interested in a particular kind of pet food, dry versus wet, they even get into brands down below here. So we're in the pet category, so we're seeing Purina cat chow. So if you feel like, well, the food you make, the dog food or cat food you make might be pretty similar to one of these other brands, maybe you want to see how much money people are spending on these kinds of brands and who's buying these kind of brands. So it's a good way to sort of get a picture, like a picture with a geographic component to it on what your customers are spending their money on. I'm going to filter this a little bit more. So there's also this filter bar on the top. It works kind of like a search bar. So I'm just going to type in dogs, and it's only going to look at these survey questions that have something to do with dogs. So maybe I'm looking at, I want to see who's buying packaged dry dog food. So I can put a check on that and close out this menu. And now I see a new map that's looking at the number of households that buy packaged food. And we can change that to zip code data if we want to. And there we go. If you want to, you can change the way this legend looks. You can change the color scheme. Click on edit there. There are a lot of predefined colors for you. You can change the cutoff point, so where the colors change from lighter to darker orange in this case, you can change those if you want to do that. Okay. I want to show you something else here too. So besides creating a map, you can also create comparison tables and rankings based on the data you've selected. So let's look at the comparison table. So this is showing, so we selected Georgia, and the data we selected was the number of households that have 4 or more dogs, and it's comparing the Georgia number with the USA. And we could add more variables or locations to get a more complete picture of what's happening. So maybe we go to locations and we can type in maybe Fulton County. And maybe we want to look at the cab as well. And so this is showing us the number of pets. Maybe we want to compare that with the percentage of people who have 4 or more dogs as well. So we can go back to our data selection tool here, go back to consumer behavior, pets, and pet ownership. And let's filter the dogs. So we can see the percentage of people who have 4 or more dogs as well. And maybe we want to add something else. So you could add as many variables or as many geographies to one of these comparison tables as you want. So you just go back to the consumer behavior, or in this case, consumer behavior. But if you wanted to look at other data categories, you could do that as well. So maybe I want to see who buys dog biscuits and treats too. So you can create this tabular data set based on potential customers that includes geographies and the specific survey question. And if you're interested, let's go back to the consumer behavior data category again. So if you're interested what any of these, I'm going to go choose pets again. So if you're interested in what any of these survey questions are or where the data comes from, you can click on these 3 little dots, and then there's this view metadata option. So it gives you a little description about the source, where that data came from, who's collecting it, when it was collected, and that sort of thing. There's another thing you can do with Simply Analytics that I think is kind of helpful. There's this ranking. So on the right panel here, it just shows you a few different commonly used options of what you can do with the data you've already selected. So we can, I'm not going to do the quick report today, but if you want to play around with that, the quick report just takes the geography you've selected, and it comes up with like a basic demographic analysis of what's happening in that area, which can be good for a lot of things, but it doesn't include variables from this consumer behavior data set, so it might not be super helpful for this example. But I'm going to go to this rankings option, and you can see here it's taking the data we've already used, so it's saying the top 100, say the top 10, and it defaults to congressional districts, but we're not really interested in that. Let's go to cities. So the top 10 cities in Georgia, sorted by, if we pull down this menu, the number of households that have 4 or more pets, 4 or more dogs. So you can see here it says Atlanta is the highest ranking city in Georgia in terms of households that have 4 or more dogs. If you click on this View New button here, you can see that there are a few different types of tables and visualizations that you can create. Yeah, that sounds good. I just saw your chat, Dan. So there's some other options you can choose. You can You can create a bar chart based on the data you've selected. The ranking table we've looked at, comparison table we looked at, map we looked at, quick report I told you about. The ring study, you can set up, like you can type in an address and look at the data from 1 mile radius around that address, 3 mile radius around that address, or 5 mile ring around that radius too. So that might be a helpful thing too. So now with Social Explorer, if you want to export a map, I'm just going to go back to the map. If you wanted to export anything here, you can see if maybe this map looks good to me and this is the map I want to export. There's an export button on the top. And I can export my map. If I wanted to put it into a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document or something like that. And you can export your data tables as well. You have an option to export it as an Excel file, a CSV, or a DBF file. So that was a quick intro to Simply Analytics. It's a really helpful tool. A lot of people use it for demographic analysis as well as consumer information and consumer behavior kind of stuff. Does anybody have any questions about this before I shoot it back over to Dan?
One question, Joel.
Yes.
There's a ton of information in here. Are there any tutorials online? Is there anything in Linda or anything on the library website where if someone wanted a tutorial on this?
No, not because I don't think I'm pretty sure lynda.com does not have anything, and we haven't posted any videos on it. But I do during the normal semester when we're all on campus. I do about 2 in-person workshops with Simply Analytics every semester.
Okay.
And what I'm probably going to do over the summer, since I'll probably create one for the summer too, since we won't be in person. So look for that.
Okay. Hey Joel, this is Dan. So
yeah.
I just want to point out under support, if you click on support, it would give you a drop-down menu. And in the very bottom, there is a 4 to 5 minutes tutorial for the very beginners. And so if you're not familiar with this, with Simply Analytics, this is a good way to learn how to set up a project.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Dan.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Raise your virtual hand or take yourself off the mic, off mute. No, I don't. Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Dan. Dan's going to
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Hello, everybody. And I'm sorry for not being able to share with you earlier or the rest of my PowerPoint, but let me restart. And I just want to make sure that this time you can see everything. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Sure
Okay,
do.
great. All right, wonderful. And thank you so much for being so flexible. So this is just an introduction to the workshop. It's kind of give you a little structure, background, what we're doing here. And so when I got cut off, Joel just so kind to step in to keep us going, but to continue with our program. We were just talking about the 3 databases that we will cover today: IBIS World, University Reporter, and Simply Analytics. And these are the way that you get to the library website. And you can also get it through iCollege as well. So when you get to the landing page of the library, to get to the databases, you just scroll down till you see databases by name. So if you were to look for Simply Analytics, like the one that Joel just showed you, just click on F and just activate Simply Analytics. And but the main purpose of this workshop, again, is like I said before, Erica has gave me some wonderful information about Launch GSU members, and more than half of you are not business majors. So to go through all the business data that we have available here could be a little overwhelming for you guys who are not business major. So the purpose of this workshop is just kind of give you some additional help to find data, but more likely from a non-business kind of a, oriented research and homework kind of a thing. But as you know, being a startup or an entrepreneur, you're asking to use a lot of your intuition and work on your startup based on trial and error. And that's great. I admire entrepreneurs and startup people from that perspective. But if you have this kind of information readily available for you, so why just save yourself some trouble and just get as much information outside of your own experience and save you a lot of time and money as well. And I think the library has a lot of resources to support you from that sense. So for any business startup, I know many of you have had an idea. You may have a business already started already. But if you use some other thing like the industry report, you can learn more about the description, the markets, the products related to your business. And you can look at how the business is going to grow, how the business trend is going to grow. Is this a good industry to be in? Especially now with COVID-19, you may want to think about, is this something that is going to be successful in this time that we have here? There's a lot of uncertainty, but in some of the databases that we have, it actually would give you COVID-19 trends and information to help guide you make decisions about your existing business or potential opportunities for other businesses that you can go into. And then, you can look into the market analysis and see the structure, the trends, the growth of the industry. You can also look at through some infographics to get a sense of how your business is doing, not having to read through pages and pages of analyst reports. So that's going to help you with saving a lot of time. And also, Simple Analytics, the one that Joel just showed you, it is a geolocation tool, and it can help you identify where to find and locate your customer from a physical standpoint, and what is the best way, the best location to maximize your success potential with your business. All right, so this is just a quick summary of the kind of databases that we're going to go over today and what they can do for you. And this workshop is a three-step workshop. So the first thing we're going to go through is to show you how to use IBISWorld. And in here, you're going to do some industry search, which is how your business is related to this industry. And in here, you're going to use infographic and interpret data. And the next database we're going to use is University Reporter. This is where you can identify your core customers. For example, if you're opening up an online clothing store, you want to look at what generation is more than likely to buy clothes online. Is it Generation X, Generation Y? Is it Baby Boomer? What are the age group? What are their income levels? And how often do they buy that product? So you want to target those are the people that you want to go after in marketing your products or services to. And so in University Reporter, you're going to learn how to analyze the data. And then lastly, Simply Analytics is to show you how to map data. All right, so here we are. We have IBISWorld. And it is, like I said before, it is a database specialized in industry report. And recently it has updated information and data related to COVID-19 to help you plan or look at the opportunities available with the trends, the situation that we are here today. All right. So University Reporter, again, is for customer identification, and then Simply Analytic is the mapping tool. And here is the contact information for Joel and myself. And just remember, this workshop is not to show you how to actually use databases, but just kind of give you a preview, give you a glimmers of what's available out there. So if any of this is an interest to you and you want to learn more about it, you are more than welcome to contact me or Joel, and then we can set up an individual consultation with you. We can go to your actual business plans, your products, and see what kind of data that you need to support your business startup. So with that, I'm going to jump off here, and I'm going to take you directly into the IBIS World database. It is here. So when you get to the go to the library homepage, and then you click on the letter I, and that's going to take you to IBIS World. And once you're in here, here is the quick report about COVID-19. If you click on it, it would give you a quick preview of what's happening in the business world related to coronavirus. And if you scroll down here and just look through what's interesting to you, and the industry impact of coronavirus is right here. If you click on that, and this is the report on the industry impacts. And then if you scroll all the way down, you get a lot of general information about the different industry. But then in the very bottom here, they have specific industry, and looks like some of them could be potential opportunities and that you can think about, or if you have a business that's related to some of these industry, you may want to dig into it and see, what are the the issues out there, or how is it going to disrupt your business. So that's one way of getting a general understanding how COVID may potentially impact your business startup. All right, and then let me go back to the search page of IBIS World. And here is where you can find the industry related to your business startup. So it's very easy. In the past, you used to have to, can you still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right. So in the past, to find an industry, you need an industry code. But now with the age of computer, we don't need to do that anymore. We just use a keyword search. It's just like in the past, if you go to the library, if you're trying to find a book, you have to know the Dewey Decimal System. You may have to use the Library of Congress. But nowadays, you just need to type in a keyword, a title of a book, and you can pull the book up. There's some similarity with industry report and finding books at the library. So for example, I'm using the same business scenario before. Let's see if you're interested in opening up an online clothing business. So all I have typing in is just online, and then I'm going to type in clothing. And in here, you see that here's the list of suggestions of different type of online businesses and the reports for that particular industry. If you click on View on More Results, it will give you different additional industry report. So for example, I'm just going to click on the online clothing sales in the U.S. All right, so when I click on that, you can see right here is the report itself, and everything is organized in a tab form, and it's listed on the left-hand side of the page. So the first page is just a general description of the industry, and then industry performance, You can just look at the current performance and how did it perform in the past. And then industry outlook is how the industry gonna perform in the near future. And so you can see right here, it looks like it kind of take into consideration of the COVID-19 here. Looked like a sharp drop right here, and it's going to very slowly build up, and it's going to grow in 2020 and 2023 around that area. So this is something that you may want to keep in mind if you are in the online clothing business. And then there's a products and market segment. You can go in here and look at, let's see, major markets out there and see. All of these are infographics, so it's easy to understand and get an idea of how the industry is doing. And then competitive landscape. This one is very useful because it kind of explains to the fact that how competitive this industry is. And then key success factor is something that you want to consider is to be successful in this business. This is what it's going to take. So even if you are going to go to, apply for a loan to expand your business, if you can answer some of these success factors to the loan officer, you're more likely to convince him that you know what you're doing, and then you're going to be very successful with your business. And let's see. And then major companies. What are the major companies?
This is so important, Dan. This is so important. I tell people in our business plan presentation, all major assumptions have to be justified. And this is the resource that they can use to justify their assumptions.
That's right. That's a good point, Erica. And if you go into to a bank or a loan officer and say you got this information from IBIS World, a very reliable source, they're more than likely to take you seriously about your determination to succeed in this business.
Yep.
So that's a lot of information, but look through here. There's just so much that you can use in terms of learning more about the industry for your business. What strategy do you take during COVID-19? There potential opportunity for you to expand, or is it something you should have to reconsider because it become more challenging now than it was before? So, but look through this, and if you're interested in learning more how IBIS World is applicable to your particular startup or business, get in touch with me, and we can just sit down and look through this, and then just pull out information that you need for your startup. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
I don't see any hands raised right now. You can go ahead and keep going. And again, you find this is right there, like you said, at the top on the home page. Just search the databases and they just go to IBIS World. They go to I. Oh, Dan, I don't hear you anymore. Oh no, Joel. Oh wait, Dan, what? You were muted. Hold on, I don't know. There you go. I don't know why you were muted.
Okay. You ready for me to take over, or do you have something else?
Yeah, Joel. Yes. There's no other question. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joel, and Joel will talk a little bit more about University Reporter, how to identify your core consumer, and it's an interesting database, and I really enjoy using it, and I hope that you would use that one as well. It's really easy to use once you understand that who your core consumer, so that you can market your products and service directly to them. Okay, Joe, thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay. I think I need to be reassigned host role.
I just made you a presenter. Is it not giving you the share features?
No.
Okay. All yours.
Okay, good. Now I can do it.
Okay.
Great. Just give me a second to get set up here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so you should see my screen, which has the library website, right?
Yep.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at a database now. It's called University Reporter. It is it's published by a group called MRI. So the database used to be called MediaMark Reporter. I'm just saying that for context because sometimes instructors or people will still refer to it as MediaMark Reporter. But the official new name, as of about a year or two ago, is University Reporter. So you can find it in the databases by name list under U. And here it is, University Internet Reporter, formerly MediaMark Reporter. And this database provides access to a huge consumer survey. I'm going to log in. And so when you log in, I'm just going to back up actually. This database requires a registration. Hang on a second. I'm going to go back to this page. So if you're doing this at home, okay, let me try that again. Okay, so if you're doing this at home and you see this screen, before you actually log in, you have to click on this little register link, and it asks you to fill out a little form with some information. One of the things it's going to ask you for is this registration code. Now, we've been asked by the vendor, the folks at MRI, not to post this on a website or anything like that. So if we were in person, I'd give you the code, but since we're doing this online and this is going to be recorded and posted online, I don't want to share that registration code today. But if you need it, if you want to play around with this, feel free to contact either Dan or me, and we can send you that code. And once you do create your account, you will see this page when you try to log in. And this email and password, it helps. And it's actually required that you use your GSU email address to set up this account. And then whatever password you use to create your account is what you would use here. It's not, even though it's the same GSU email, it's not tied to your GSU credentials. So you're going to make up this password here. Okay, so when you log in, you will see two options, this pocket piece, and you will see the option for University Reporter. We're going to go into the University Reporter section. And you can see here, there's a report from 2019, one from 2018, and one from 2017. And in most cases, when you're looking at this kind of market research, you want the most current data available, which is, in this case, the 2019 spring. So I'm just going to click on that. So again, MediaMark Reporter issues this huge consumer survey. They do it over the phone. They call people on the phone. They ask them all sorts of demographic questions about how much money they make, what your race and ethnicity is, what kind of job you have, what's your educational attainment, what kind of products you buy, how often do you buy them, all that sort of stuff. And that's why it takes a year to make the data available because there's so much. They package it and they make it available in this database. It's primarily a consumer database. That's usually how people use it. Although, like I said, you can find some demographic data in here as well, which can be useful for marketing and other sorts of reasons as well. So you can see when it on this list. Yes, thank you. I will zoom in a little bit. Is that better? Okay, thanks for the tip. So when we're looking at the MediaMark first page, we've selected the 2019 survey, and now we're seeing all the categories. These are all the consumer categories, and again, some demographic categories that are included in this data set. And if you know specifically what you're looking for, you can just sort of go to the category and drill down from there. So let's say I'm interested in cars. I can go to the automotive section. And now these are all the questions related to cars that are in this survey. Maybe I'm interested in the make and model. So there's this automobiles and other vehicles, make and model. So if I click on this, it's going to show me the consumer responses to the questions about make and model. Okay, so on the left here, the terminology is kind of important with this database. So you see on the left, there's the detail. The detail is the actual make and model. So that's when we're talking about the detail, that's what we're talking about in this context. If I look at this Buick, it's going to change. The big section on like the middle and on the right side of the screen, that's the actual data associated with the people who bought one of these specific kinds of cars. So it's going to list not every single make and model that's available, but a lot of them. So if you look down here, you'll see a lot of Chevrolets, a lot of Chryslers. Let's say I'm interested in a Toyota Prius. If I scroll down, there's a Toyota Prius, and let's say I'm interested in finding information about the detail, in this case, the Toyota Prius owners. So if I click on that, you can see it's taken a while to process, but that whole data table on the right is going to change. So now we're looking at the data associated with Prius owners. So setting up this report is fairly straightforward. As you can see, I just looked for the make and model. To me, what I find challenging about this database is interpreting what we're looking at over here. So what is this base total? What is this number here? What's the detail and the target and the index? What does it all mean? So I want to spend the next few minutes talking about this. And this information is also on that handout that I shared with you earlier. Okay, so I just want to focus your attention just for now on the total, the target that says total men and women. So we're just going to focus on this part for now. So the detail, we talked a little bit about that earlier. The detail is the consumer behavior, which we've already selected here. It's the Toyota Prius owners. The target is the demographic or media consumption category. So if you look down at the top of the list here, it looks like it's all media consumption. I mean, it's all demographic data, but if we look down, there are questions about media consumption. So you can sort of see what TV shows people who buy Priuses tend to watch and that sort of thing. So it's really good for ad placement if you're interested in something like that. So let's go back up to the top. The base total, this represents the total number in the population. So based on MediaMark's survey, they're estimating, and these are all in thousands, they're estimating that they're 248,000, or a million, sorry. So if you multiply that by 1,000, you get the number. Oh, good. I'm glad you like the University Reporter. So this is telling us that there are 248 million people in the population, and if we break it down, there are 120 million men, 128 million women. This number here tells us that the number of people in our target who exhibited the behavior in the detail. So out of all the people who are men, 1.2 million of them have a Prius. So that's telling us. The percent detail and the percent target can be a little bit tricky too. So the way I think of this is the percent detail represents the percentage of the people in the given detail who fall in the target category. So for example, out of all of the Prius owners, 41.36% of them are men. Out of all the Prius owners in the country, 58.64% of them are women. So that's how you would interpret the percent detail. The percent target is the same kind of information, but it's flipped. So with the 1.07 here with the men, that means out of all the Prius owners in the country, 1.07% of them are men. Out of all the Prius owners in the country, 1.42% of them are women. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Out of all the women in the country, 1.42% of them own Prius.
Yeah, you threw me off. I'm like, well, where's the other 98%?
Yeah,
That's cumulative population.
And so one thing that I find very helpful when I'm interpreting this is the index. So the index is calculated, and it might make sense too if you look at the total. The index is calculated so that 100 is the average for the target and the detail. So if we look at this 113, the way you can interpret that 113 is that women are 13% more likely than the average person to buy a Prius. Men are, if the index for men is only 86, so they're 14% less likely than the average person to have a Prius. If we're just looking at men and women, it's a little bit weird to think about it that way. But if we scroll down and look at like the age target, so if we look at ages 55 through 64, they're 120. The index is 120, which means that age group is 20% more than the average person to have a Prius. 20% more likely than the average person to have a Prius. I think I said that right. So the higher the index, then the stronger correlation between that target and that detail. So if we scroll down, we see like there's this one here that's 188. So if the household income is more than 150,000, those people really love to drive a Prius.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a question. How can you turn this into a chart or graph? Okay, that's a good question. So you have an option to export this. So before I'm going to get to that in a second, but before I do, I just wanted to point out, you may have noticed too that some of these targets are red. You might be wondering what the red is. The red means, I think if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll tell you. Maybe not. Oh yeah, it's an unweighted count of 50 or less. So in other words, the red category means that the sample size is very low and you can't really draw a reliable conclusion from that. So if you're doing this in real life, just take anything that's in red as a grain of salt. It's probably not going to make a very strong argument. So just be careful about that. So, okay, so if you wanted to export this, you can.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Hey, Joe, can I point something out before you move on?
Yes.
Yes. So if you look at the age group again, like you say 18 to 24, if you look at it, it doesn't make any sense, right? But 18 to 24, they're actually the Z generation. So it looks like they are college students. So it makes sense that it's not very likely that they're going to be buying this type of car. And if you look at the highest the age group with the highest consumption of this 121, you see again, that's kind of like the X generation. Those people are actually maybe midway through their career, they have money, they're well educated. So these are the things that you want to look at. If your product falls into one of these groups, you can find out which generation they came from, and you can create a marketing plan based on how these generations spend and consume the product.
That's right. Yeah, so we're trying to put together a picture of who's buying our products here. So yeah, thanks for adding that context, Dan. I wanted to show a little bit about how to export it too. So if you click on the export, you can send it to an Excel sheet, a PDF, or an XML reporter file. You can name it whatever you want. So the Excel and the PDF, I think, are pretty straightforward. The reporter file puts it in an XML markup language. So let's say I wanted to share this with Dan. Maybe Dan and I are working on the same project, and I want him to see what I've done. I could send him that XML file, and he could open it up. He could open up University Reporter and then import it. So if I sent that to Dan, he would import it by going to this open file icon and then browse his computer to find that XML file that I sent to him. And you can also customize what is on this list. So the question was, not only do you want to make it into a chart or graph, but you want to view it better. So maybe you want to get rid of all these targets that are red, right? So what you could do is you could go into, click on that little gear icon. And this allows you to select what targets you want to show up in your report or not. And by the way, so I'm going to close out of that just for a second. This list here, this is not a complete list of targets. There are a lot more you can choose from. This is just like the default. I mean, look, there's data on magazine readership, TV show types, websites, social media. So there's a lot of information here, but that's not everything. So if we click on that gear again and we open up the list, everything on the right menu here that says selected targets, those are the items that have all been set as your default targets, but there are more available targets. So you can see if you wanted a more granular age breakdown, you could choose these. If you wanted to look at census regions. Now, if you're looking at putting a geographic component together with your marketing data, then Simply Analytics is probably the way to go. But you can get some regional data here. So if maybe I want to look at census regions, I want to put those all in my report. So I'm going to highlight all of those and press that button to the right. So now when I click OK and look at my report, I'll see the census regions in addition to all these default targets that were in here. Same thing for county size. So it's not quite mapping to a specific location, but it's looking at, like, you can think of this as the rural versus urban areas, right? You can look at the data divided by marital status. There's a lot of other categories you can use here. So once you've decided the targets you want, if you don't want some of these, you can maybe occupation isn't important to me. I can take all those and move them to the right so they're not on there. So you can add or remove whatever you want here, and then I'm going to click OK. And now we can see all the way to the bottom. I think we'll see our census regions. So the census regions we just added are now showing up on the bottom. Another thing you can do with this is you can actually grab more than one target. So let's say I'm interested in, I'm going to scroll down. I'm sorry, I mean detail. So if I'm scrolling down, where did the Toyota Prius go? I can hold the control key down and I can look at maybe people who buy Toyota Priuses or RAV4s or this other category. So I can just hold the control key down and look at more than one car at a time. So maybe if I'm interested in alternative fuel vehicles, I can go through the list and find all of the Leafs and the Priuses and everything else, and look at those consumers as a whole. Make sense?
Yeah.
This is now, so now these numbers are the cumulative base percentage and target for those cars.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hey, Joel.
yes.
Hey, Joel. I just want to reiterate. These numbers is sometimes like way over my understanding of what's going on. When I use this, I just think of it. If you see the number 100, it just means an average person. So to find your customer base, look for the group with the highest number. So 125 is more than likely to spend on a product or a service than someone like with a 98 index. So that's how I think, that's how I use this database, and that's the only thing that I would keep in mind if you are looking for your target customer base. Look for the highest number in the index.
Yeah, like if we look down here, I'm just scanning through the index 145. So it looks like people who watch hockey on TV, they love to buy Priuses. So it's kind of fun. If you just want to sort of figure out how it works and play around with it a little bit, the way I got used to this is I would just put in products that I buy and put it in and see if it made sense, see if I fit in any of those categories that they said I should belong in. So one thing that's kind of annoying with University Reporter is I told you a little bit about it when we started. It's that that registration that you have to go through every time, and you have to renew that registration twice a year. And so whenever you create a registration, it's always going to expire on July 1 and January 1. So if you go home, or you're probably at home now, if after this session, if you want to create your own University Reporter account on July 1st, you wouldn't be able to use it anymore. You need to re-register. So if you do go in and create an account, you'll need that registration code that I talked about earlier. You can email me or Dan for that. And so on July 1st, you'll have to re-register with that same code. And if you're still using it a lot come January, you will need to re-register yet again, but with a different code. They give us one code for every year. So next year we'll have another code. So the code you use today will still be the code you use in July, but you'll need another one in January. I know it's a little bit confusing and annoying, but that's the way it works. If you have questions about that, feel free to let me know now or send Dan or I emails and we can address that. Okay, in terms of just an overview of these two databases, that's about all I was planning on sharing with you. Does anybody have any questions about anything for me or Dan?
There were a couple questions that came in. One was, how to get to the databases, which you already addressed. There was a question about how do you schedule an appointment. Anthony wants to dive deeper into some of the things you talked about today and wanted to know how can he make an appointment.
Okay, you can email us. That's the best way to do it. Here's my email address. I'm going to type it in the chat. And Dan, I think it's DLE, right?
Yeah.
GSU.edu. And that's Dan. Yeah.
Let's see. And then someone else was asking, are their courses still offered like Microsoft Power, Tableau, and SQL?
Okay, so we are shifting to our online workshops. So whatever workshops we were offering, the research data services workshops, that includes Tableau, SPSS, and Vivo, any of those data tools. We're doing those online now, and to try to accommodate schedules. I know everybody's on weird schedules now that we're in quarantine, so we've decided to make those available online as well. So if there's a data tool or data topic that you're interested in, you can look for those videos or attend a live session. Give me a minute and I will pull up the schedule.
Okay, so you're doing similar to what we're doing. You're recording your sessions and then posting them on the library also?
Yeah, everybody's in the research data services team is handling it a little bit differently. Some people are recording a session live and then posting that. But what I did, I teach Tableau as well as traditional library things. And so for Tableau, I recorded a separate Tableau video. And we also had a live session kind of like this. We didn't want people to have to worry about potential tech issues and get held up with questions and stuff like that if they were just trying to watch the video on their own time. So, let me go back to find that page. If you go to the GSU Library website, I think you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so online workshops. If you go to all events, you'll see all the upcoming online workshops. Keep in mind that we're going to stop doing these on the 20th. Looks like even earlier than the 20th. There are only 3 more. But if you want to go see our archive, you can go to library.gsu.edu/data. And that redirects you to our data services page. And if you click on, and I'll put the URL to this in the chat in a minute. But if you go to this data certified thing, you can see a list of all the recorded workshops here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And if anybody's interested in that data services certificate, we're still counting the videos towards that credit. At the end of the video, if you watch any of these data services video, at the end there's a little URL. If you click that, or if you type in that URL, it takes you to a page where you can check in and say you attended.
Oh, cool. We have Ms. Wright sent a question to both of you. Was curious if either of you have used the databases for your own business venture and how helpful it was towards the growth of your business.
No, I'm a librarian. I don't really have any outside business ventures. Sorry. Maybe somebody else in the Launch GSU cohort can probably answer that.
Well, IBIS World is amazing, again, for finding out information about the industry information. It's an amazing tool. I think that's the one that I know people have used the most. And I'm trying to just had
Hey, Erica.
Yes.
Erica, I just want to add something. I do have a business background, and previous to working in the library and in academic setting, I work in industry. So from a small business perspective to where I was, I really admire entrepreneurs and business starter up. I mean, it takes a lot of gumption, a lot of determination to get where you are and stay on course. But for me working in industry, it's basically the same thing. We actually use some of these databases, some of these business information to support and grow the business and look out for competition and potential threats and opportunities to grow our business. And these databases are actually being used out there in industry, and they're very expensive. Look at University Reporter is really it's a really great database, and a lot of people who are not affiliated with GSU would love to get their hands on it because there's so much for them in terms of growing their business and also advising other people how to grow their business. Like business consultants, they use this kind of information to draw up the business plan for people who are willing to pay them for the service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even if they're not using these specific tools, they're using tools that are very similar.
And again, I unfortunately was up at 4 o'clock this morning dealing with those silly tornadoes and can't seem to get enough coffee in my system right now. I'm having a brain fart because my favorite database didn't come up in this presentation, but I cannot call the database where we can put the NAICS code in. It tells you how many businesses in a certain radius. You can slice it and dice it a million different ways by NAICS code, by number of employees, by CEO, by revenue.
Reference USA?
Thank you. Yes, I could not get that off of my tongue. Anissa, Reference USA is probably the one, even prior to coming to Launch GSU, Reference USA is the one that I personally use the most, helping other small business owners. That is an amazing tool as it relates to trying to just figure out who the competition is, and as well as prospective potential business. So he's pulled up Reference, and this is another one that people would have to pay a significant amount of money for to have access to. This is an incredibly cool resource.
Right.
Yeah, this is great. It's a really comprehensive directory, and it's updated constantly. So it's fairly up to date. About as up to date as any of the sources we've looked at. But you can, if you're interested in, if I want to use the same example I was using earlier, if I'm interested in pet supply stores or something like that, I can, this is the advanced search screen on Reference USA. I can go in and click on this keyword, SIC NAICS. Maybe I'll type in pet supply. It's a keyword. And it says, I'll use pet shops, or pet supplies and food retail. How about that one? And then maybe I'm only looking in a specific geographic area. I can look at maybe city. And I can go down here where the city state box appears. And I'll choose Georgia. And then I'll view results. And it's telling me that there are 1,754 pet stores, pet supply stores in Atlanta. I can revise my search. Maybe I'm only looking at smaller independent pet stores. I can change the size by sales volume or number of employees. If I know somebody who works there, or an executive, I might be able to find it by typing in their name or something like that. There's another thing you can do here. I'm just going to go back to the results page. There's a heat map, so you can actually pull up a map, and so where the most red is, that's where most of the pet stores are. So maybe the Atlanta market might be saturated for pet stores, but maybe if you're out in a rural area, you might be able to sell some pet supplies.
Data You can use this. You can use this. Oh my goodness. You can use this a couple of different ways. Number one, if you're looking to open up a pet store, this can tell you how many other pet stores there are in an area. But if you are selling to pet stores, then now here's your list of potential buyers.
Right.
Right.
So there's
And
yeah, a
and
number of ways.
also, I mean, for entrepreneurs, I mean, at some point you want to grow your business as well. So this is a good map for you to look into the scalability of your business and to sell that to your potential investor if they're interested in your plans 5 years from now, what you want to do with your business. Are you going to stay in Atlanta? And if you want to grow, where are the potential business you want to grow into to franchise your business?
Right. And you can look at businesses by revenue size and number of employees to get a fairly accurate picture or comparison of what you can expect to do in your similar business.
So this is a really cool tool. Take advantage. And it doesn't take long to learn how to use it.
Yeah, Reference USA is a good one. I'll put a link to it. I put the title in the chat, but I'll link to it as well.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? I appreciate you guys. Thank you for those that have hung on the entire presentation. We appreciate you. Dan and Joel, thank you as always. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being such a good friend to launch GSU. The last thing I did want to ask, there was an email and I couldn't pull it up. I think Brian sent it out, an email letting all the students know that you guys have added some additional capability to the library that wasn't there before. Are there some additional tools that have been added?
We're trying. I'm not sure specifically what he was talking about, but we do have an agreement with an organization called Hathy Trust. They're trying to digitize books. So we've worked out an agreement with Hathy Trust that if we have a book in our collection, you can't check out a physical book at the moment, but if you want to, if that book is in Hathy Trust, we've worked out an agreement so you can access it for free through their service. An ebook.
I thought he said like there was access to some other databases, and it was an email that went out to all students probably at the beginning of last week, which of course is just
from Jeff? Is it from the dean?
Yeah, from the dean, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've seen that. I can forward that email to you.
I was just curious if there was anything worth mentioning to the students about the additional resources that were available. If you guys added anything to the library during this time. Didn't they say they expanded some additional services?
Oh, for like computer laptops and things like that. If you need help, if you need a computer laptop, where to get it, things like that, technology.
I saw that in there. I'll find it and forward it to everyone who participated in this presentation. I think because I opened it, it's just not popping up right now.
Yeah. In terms of additional resources, we haven't added much. We talked about adding some trials to a few different databases. We're trying to just accommodate more people virtually, and I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about, so forgive me for not knowing off the top of my head. But if you have any follow-up questions about that, let me and Dan know, and we can track it down.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate both of your time and attention this afternoon. If you were in front of us, of course, you would get a standing round of applause. Anissa said this was amazing. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. If anyone sends me any questions after, I know where to find you guys. So thank you again. You guys stay safe, be well. Again, the final presentation for this week is Entrepreneurship for Entertainers on Wednesday. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, have a good one. Be well.